Hello, dear friends. There are days overflowing with news, and this is one of them. Opinion piece. Do the galactics distrust Putin? Are they not making contact because of Ukraine? Opinion by British ufologist Nick Pope. Hypothesis of the British tabloid Daily Star. War would be for primitive civilizations. Putin wouldn't be the only one responsible for the tension. Ukraine's situation would slow down first contact. We have no invitation to join the Federation yet. Space Ark rescue mission in the Atlantic. Strange golden objects next to space station. Microsoft mitigates the largest cyberattack in history. More than 78 countries are in a state of cyber warfare. Texas power grid braces for Arctic cold snap. More than 1,600 flights cancelled due to snowstorm in the US. Groundhog Phil predicts winter will last 6 more weeks. Europe's natural gas stock plunges to record lows. Spain reopens Maghreb gas pipeline to supply Morocco. A state prosecutor's office to investigate the pederasty in the Spanish church. Israel on alert after huge oil spill off its coast. Huge oil slick spreads across the Amazon in Ecuador. Let's start. Intelligent life may exist in the universe, but Russian and NATO troops and tanks may be driving it away from planet Earth, according to an analysis by Laila Guest reported in the British media. Speaking to the famous British tabloid Daily Star in late January, Nick Pope, an ufologist who was even once hired by the British Ministry of Defence to search for evidence of extraterrestrial life, put forward his view as to why there is still no first contact and they have not yet landed to spread their message of peace and interstellar cooperation. According to him, in quotes, highly evolved star visitors probably regard warfare as something only primitive civilizations engage in, meaning that the visitors might not want to engage with the human species today. The situation in Ukraine means that we are unlikely to receive an invitation to join the Galactic Federation for the time being, he said. But of course, Putin would not be solely responsible for the tension in Ukraine, and he may not even be the biggest culprit, since there are many players in this scenario, and not all of them are good ones. Pope hinted that beings from outer space can understand, however, why nations would be willing to form alliances to counter Moscow's alleged aggression. In quotes, visitors might question the wisdom of the UK standing up to Russia, but they would probably realize that being in a coalition helps, he explained. It has not been revealed which planet the NATO-loving, Kremlin-skeptical visitors might come from, because it lacks equanimity. The idea that President Putin might be scaring the visitors is not the first questionable version published by British tabloids in recent months. In late 2020, British media covered reports from notorious Russian conspiracy theorists that Putin's health had worsened, with some reporting that the leader was preparing to step down, suffering from Parkinson's disease, had been diagnosed with cancer and had undergone a top secret operation, all of which were denied by the Kremlin. Background: Nick Pope is a British freelance journalist, media commentator, a former civil servant. While working in the British government's Ministry of Defence, Pope was responsible for, among other duties, investigating the UFO phenomenon to determine if it had any defence significance. Pope worked as a civil servant in the Ministry of Defence from 1985 to 2006, where his duties included investigating reports of UFO sightings. At the time, although the MOD stated that it, in quotes, it remains entirely open about whether or not extraterrestrial life forms exist, it also stated that there was no evidence to suggest that UFO sightings posed a threat to the UK or were of extraterrestrial origin. In November 2006, Mr. Pope declared that the British government's X-Files had been closed. He now continues his research and investigation privately and works as a freelance journalist and media commentator, covering topics including the unexplained, conspiracy theories, space, science fiction, and alternative science. UK sends Typhoon aircraft to scout for Russian bombers north of Scotland. The Royal Air Force on Wednesday scrambled Eurofighter Typhoon aircraft in Moray, Scotland, to track 4 Russian Bear strategic bombers operating north of Britain. Interdimensional spacecraft. Blogger spots strange golden objects near International Space Station. Prolific blogger Scott C. Waring recently claimed that he saw some kind of strange glowing golden objects in space near the International Space Station, arguing that the objects in question seemed to pop in and out of the visual. Waring boldly suggested that it seems likely that humans of the future may be looking back in time, studying us in their own habitat, in our own habitat. All of this is in quotes because it's his personal opinion. As Waring explained on his blog, he stumbled upon this site while watching the live feed from the NASA camera when he saw these objects, which appear to be metallic as they are golden and have a slight brown and grey hue, with some of them some small and others as big as the space station. Rescue in the Atlantic. SpaceX rescue mission in the Atlantic by Dr. Michael Saller. In his second mission to a space ark found at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle, GPA, currently serving in the US Army, describes a multinational rescue mission composed of US, Russian, and Chinese soldiers. The mission was sent to rescue Aztec servicemen from Mexico who had been left behind on an earlier mission. GPA explains now how the multinational team found the Aztec Indians and also discovered a powerful portal connecting the Atlantic Arc to other hidden arcs in our solar system. He says 15 soldiers inadvertently passed through the portal while exploring a similar arc on the moon. GPA describes the multinational rescue mission, how Chinese, Russian, and American soldiers collaborated, and what else is hidden inside the mysterious arcs discovered on Earth and our solar system by covert military teams. Reset news. First, the current reset is expected to occur between mid-2022 and late 2023. Anything other than this would be just noise. Second, Canadian truckers arrive in Ottawa to protest against regulations. A huge number of trucks, which earlier forced Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to leave his home in Ottawa, have formed a huge freedom convoy. According to event organizers, there are as many as 50,000 vehicles forming a 70-kilometer-long column towards the capital. A similar event for those who couldn't drive to Ottawa is taking place in Vancouver, British Columbia. Third, as the Freedom Convoy of truckers protesting Canada's mandates moved through southeastern Alberta, Canadian government officials reiterated their support for the policy requiring Canadian and US truckers to show a health pass to cross the border. Fourth, next week's Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. trucker convoy of the Truckers for World Freedom movement has reached the support of more than 110,000 truckers so far and is growing rapidly. Digital currency. First, all countries are pushing to implement digital currency through their own central banks to compete with cryptocurrency. Second, the purpose of digital currency is to serve as a catalyst for global economic reform. Third, the push for countries to implement their own digital currency is a precursor to the implementation of the quantum financial system. Fourth, each country transitioning to digital currency will undergo currency revaluation based on multiple factors, such as resources and assets. 5. Recent rumors from anonymous sources suggest that after Iraq successfully transitions to its digital currency, the Iraqi dinar would become so strong that it would overtake the dollar and take its place as the world's reserve currency. 6. All systems are being implemented first before the total elimination of the dark side to achieve a smooth transition to the new paradigm. 7th, the coalition is actively countering the moves to destroy the systems that are being put in place. 8. GISARA and the quantum financial system are the two key factors in generating the new paradigm. 9. GISARA is the initiative to bring about monumental governmental changes worldwide. 10. The quantum financial system will be the next evolution of the world economy. 11. The current financial system is in its final stretch, as it begins to fail and demonstrates that it is no longer a viable system for the world economy. 12. A black swan event is expected to occur soon that would break the current financial system. 13. The first course of action for all is to survive and resist, while the coalition works behind the scenes. 14. Zuckerberg's dream for launching a cryptocurrency is officially over. 15. India to tax the purchase of crypto assets at a 30% rate. The government of India plans to levy a 30% tax on the purchase of cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens. The Reserve Bank of India will launch its digital currency on April 1st. Cyberattacks. First, there are fears of cyberattacks, whether man-made or from a solar storm, that could shut down the power grid system. Second, more than 78 countries are in a state of cyber warfare. Hundreds of thousands of cyber defenders and attackers are on the standby in these nations. Third, cyber attack hits German fuel supply. A major gasoline distribution company and oil supplier, which feed a total of 26 German companies with fuel, have been crippled by a major cyberattack that sparked fears of a fuel shortage crisis. Fourth, Microsoft mitigates largest attack in history. Microsoft reported in October the mitigation of the largest denial of service attack ever detected on its Azure platform, which has been followed by others, including what they believe to be the largest in history at 3.47 terabytes per second. Fifth, CNN President Jeff Zucker resigns. Jason Kilar, CEO of CNN's parent company Warner Media, said he accepted the resignation of Jeff Zucker as president of Warner Media News and Sports and president of CNN Worldwide. Snowstorm. First, record snowfall in Boston. Second, Texas power grid braces for Arctic cold snap. Temperatures are expected to plummet this week in the state's oil and natural gas producing areas, threatening oil and natural gas producing areas of the state, threatening production and its power grid. Third, more than 1,600 flights cancelled due to snowstorm. A total of 1,634 domestic and international flights scheduled for Thursday have been cancelled due to snowstorm expected to hit the central and northeastern U.S. in the morning hours. Flight tracker FlightAware has shown more than 1,200 flights scheduled for Wednesday were also cancelled and more than 100 were delayed. Fourth, Groundhog Phil predicts winter will last 6 more weeks in the US. This year, the lucky one was again Groundhog Phil, who, seeing his own shadow when he emerged from the burrow, hints that winter will not end until well into March, 6 weeks hence. Fifth, Groundhog Mel dies. The famous Milltown Groundhog Mel, who was responsible for predicting when spring would arrive in New Jersey, died, and no replacement could be found. 6. Airline refuses to ship monkeys for scientific research. Kenya Airlines will stop shipping monkeys for a U.S. research lab after the animals that they were carrying were involved in a car crash in Pennsylvania. Earthquakes. First, earthquakes throughout San Diego County, California. Second, third earthquake detected this week near the shore of Lake Erie in the U.S. Third, earthquakes on January 31 in Papua New Guinea. Europe. First, Europe's gas stocks plunge to historic lows. Europe's storage facilities are more than half empty. Gas stocks in Europe plummeted to historically low levels this month. Second, European Commission investigates rising gas prices in Europe. The European Commission is analyzing the jump in gas prices in the European market and is trying to find out if it has to do with the market behavior of the supply companies. Third, cost of living in Europe breaks record highs. The European Union was forced to admit that price increases are not as temporary and benign as previously stated. Inflation across the Eurozone rose to 5.1% in January from 5% the previous month, despite optimistic expectations of a sharp drop to 4.4%. Inflation is now more than double the ECB's 2% touched. The European Statistics Office has never recorded such a figure since it began its estimates in January 1997 for the 19 countries that have adopted the single currency. Fourth, Germany downgrades its growth forecast. The German government has lowered its economic growth forecast for 2022 by half a percentage point to 3.6%. Fifth, Spain reopens the Maghreb gas pipeline to supply Morocco. The Spanish government opens its hand and will allow Morocco to use the Maghreb Europe gas pipeline closed since November. The European country agrees to this request so that Morocco can guarantee the security of its supply and face the energy crisis that could be unleashed in the Muslim country. Sixth, the State Prosecutor's Office will investigate cases of pederasty in the Spanish Church. The General State Prosecutor's Office has taken the reins of the investigation of the cases of pederasty in the Church and has ordered the 17 superior prosecutors to send it, within 10 days, all the complaints and lawsuits in process. Supply crisis. First, food shortages in Western Australia. Second, some 24 million Afghans in need of humanitarian aid. Third, Afghanistan owes more than $33 million to Tajikistan for power supply. Afghanistan has an outstanding bill of more than $33 million for power it received from Tajikistan. Fourth, Israel is alert after an oil spill off its coast. A year after one of the most serious ecological disasters Israel has ever faced, the Ministry of Environmental Protection announced a suspected oil spill some 20 kilometers off the coast and is preparing emergency plans to deal with the situation. 5. Amnesty International denounces Israel for its policy towards the Palestinian people. In its report, Amnesty points out that Palestinians are treated as a racially inferior group, systematically deprived of their rights, land and property, and treated as a demographic threat. Ecuador. First, deadly flooding hits Ecuador's capital, Quito. A desolate atmosphere is seen in the neighborhoods of La Gasca and La Comuna, in the northwest of the capital of Ecuador, which on January 31st were hit by a flood, which so far leaves 22 dead, 47 injured, and 20 missing, although the figures are constantly being updated. Second, a huge slake of 6,300 barrels of oil spreads across the Amazon in Ecuador. It is the huge black slake left by an OCP oil leak in the lungs of the planet, the Amazon. The spot shot out when workers were removing the detached rocks in an area under which an Ecuadorian oil pipeline runs. The huge waterfall, which has already been estimated at more than 1 million liters of oil, ended up in one of the tributaries of the Amazon River and affected the specially protected Cayambe-Coca National Park. Environmentalists and the inhabitants of the area fear a high environmental impact not only on the fauna and flora but also on their economy. Third, the World Bank approves a $700 million loan for Ecuador. The World Bank approved this quantity freely available loan for Ecuador. The loan has a term of 16 and a half years and includes a 5-year grace period. Geopolitics. US and NATO reject Moscow's main demands. The US government and NATO ruled out an agreement on security in Europe with Russia, as well as closing the door to a future incorporation of Ukraine into the Atlantic Alliance, according to the Spanish newspaper El País. The US and NATO offered Moscow to negotiate disarmament agreements and confidence-building measures in different forums. Second, the US and NATO told Russia that they will refrain from deploying nuclear weapons in Eastern Europe. Earlier, the Russian government expressed concern about NATO military activity near its borders and about the alliance plans to expand further eastward, including into Ukraine. Third, NATO offers Russia dialogue and transparency, but militarizes its border. NATO offers Moscow dialogue, and now it is Moscow's turn to take the next step, says Latvian Foreign Minister Edgars Rinkēvičs. Meanwhile, the alliance continues to increase its military power on the border with Russia. Fourth, the West keeps up the diplomatic machine and Russia denies it is planning an attack. Tensions continue to rise over whether Russia has enough troops on the border to fully or partially invade Ukraine. And although red lines have been drawn by all involved, there still seems to be some small possibility of a dialogue. 5. Pentagon to send troops to Romania, Germany and Poland. The Pentagon announces that it will move 2,000 troops to Romania, Germany and Poland following an invitation from the governments of the European countries. 6. German Navy Chief resigns. Kai-Aching Schonbach, Vice Admiral of the German Navy, resigned after a backlash over comments he made about President Putin and the Crimean Peninsula. 7th, US to send ships and fighter jets to United Arab Emirates. The US will deploy a guided missile destroyer and fighter jets to defend the United Arab Emirates amid missile attacks by Yemen's Houthis. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.